Hi, everyone.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Community Spotlight edition of the Endurance School. We are super lucky to have Eric Zaltas with us tonight. Eric is a 25-year veteran of the sports nutrition industry, most of it with the company called Powerbar. And he holds graduate degrees in both general nutrition and in sports nutrition. The reason we're so super stoked to have him on is Eric recently founded a company called Pivot Nutrition, which is focused on bringing science-based nutrition to endurance athletes. And the first thing they did was they worked with Powerbar's owners to bring Powerbar's sports products back to retail shops across the US. We're going to talk about that a little bit tonight, but there's a cool story about how that all went down. Pivot is also the distributor of Quantum Squares, which those of you who have signed up for an Ironman have probably seen their product out and about. Um, Unsurprisingly, Eric is also a lifelong endurance athlete. He's a former national champion bike racer, and he's also run 20 marathons, completed an Ironman at Ironman Switzerland, and a couple of 70.3s. And he's one of those lifelong endurance athletes that as you go and start looking at his race results, you're like, oh, wow, this is a very, very serious athlete. So, Eric, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Molly. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming.
All right.
Awesome. So, the first thing that we always start off with here at the Endurance School is just a general check in about how you're doing, how you've kind of been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, sort of where that has landed you, and yeah, just general how are things?
Yeah, so I'm based in the New York area, and this is the epicenter of what's going on in the U.S. anyway, and it is all around. Thankfully, family and friends are in good shape. I have a 102-year-old great aunt who is
Wow.
in a assisted facility on the Upper East Side of New York, and she's hanging in there. We so far we've just been on the phone with her, but we're trying to get some FaceTime going with her. So pretty good. I guess you guys have heard that bikes are the new toilet paper. Like bikes are sold out around the country.
I did not know that.
What's that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, the bike industry is, I mean, that's fabulous, right? I mean,
That's
people
amazing.
are buying bikes in my neighborhood anyway. There's tons of people biking and running, which is great. There's less planes in the sky. I mean, there's some silver linings to this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously a lot of suffering, but hopefully we get through this okay.
One of the questions when Amy and I were kind of talking about things to ask earlier, and I mean, obviously the races are getting canceled and things like that across the world, and you guys are a supplier to Ironman. What This is like one of those like the life of a t-shirt thing. What happens to a lot of that product that was destined for races? Like where does that end up going?
That is a great question. Yeah. So we are there have been some virtual races, and we're working on helping some folks who are doing virtual races and doing some sampling. There's a race going on in June, and we're gonna be supplying prizes for all the age group winners. So, but we've got plenty of product that's waiting to be used for events. And so hopefully, it's some of it is sitting around. So if you've got some ideas for virtual events, we've got some product for
We
you.
totally have
Ooh,
ideas.
nice. We will
Let
we
me
will
know.
we will circle back to that
Come
for
on
sure.
back.
Um, but so tell us about Pivot Nutrition. It's I think that for a lot of people don't really know the story of what's happening with Power Bar, and that it's changed hands a little bit over the past decade. But if you, yeah, I think as we were talking beforehand, it's pretty interesting to hear how you guys have been able to secure the rights to the sports side of things. So if you wouldn't mind telling us a story about how Pivot Nutrition came to be, and then how you guys secured the sports line from Powerbar.
Okay. Yeah, it's, once upon a time in a decade called the 80s, some of us were out there doing the endurance thing. And so, I was first exposed to Powerbar in the mid 80s when, the bar was originally stirred up in a kitchen in Berkeley in, I think, 1983. And, the Brian Maxwell was a marathon runner from Canada, world class was qualifying for Olympic team, and he was in Berkeley, and his girlfriend and eventual wife was a nutritionist at Cal, and he cooked this bar up, and like we were talking about earlier, once upon a time was the high carb craze, and carbs were Martina Navratilova, tennis player, was like there was this book Eat to Win, and it was all about high carb, and Powerbar was at the right place at the right time. And it was like incredibly formulated. And anybody who's ever had that original bar knows that there's like a little bit of magic to it. You eat it, like your tummy's totally fine. You feel energized, and I've eaten tons of those things over the years. And so the founders, Brian and Jennifer, they mom and popped it, and then it got really big. And it was the year 2000, so they'd had it for a little over a decade. And they sold it to Nestle, and Nestle kept it in Berkeley for a while. And I was living in Berkeley, and I joined. I was finishing up my bike racing career, and had studied nutrition, and it was like a match made in heaven. I had an interview in the office, and so this was after the acquisition, but there's still some people who were from the original group from the founding days. And it was great. And so so it's been, close to 20 years that I've been associated with Powerbar. And I followed it to Switzerland. And so the brand was started in sport, and it got really popular because of this macro trend of high carb, and it became kind of half 1 foot in snacking, and everybody wanted like this convenient, good tasting bar, and then the other half was in hardcore sport. And we sponsored Ironman, we sponsored some of the top triathletes at the time, and bike racers, and the Tour de France, and so there was this kind of split personality. And I won't bore you with the details, but marketing departments love to play with like these challenges. Like, so what do we do? We've got this iconic sports brand, but we've got all these people who are not like hardcore athletes, and they want snacking, so blah blah blah. So ultimately it was a split personality, and ultimately the Nestle sold to Post Holdings, which is the current owner of the Powerbar brand, and they have expertise. Post does cereal, they're very good at Costco and Walmart, not as experienced in like independent bike and run and REI. So I made it through the transition from Nestle to Post. I was running Powerbar, and ultimately they wanted to separate them out. And I said, you know what, let me and my partner, Tom Federico, who's was head of sales and sports retail for many, many years at Powerbar. So we asked, let us take over this thing. We'll have it as a separate entity. And so we have the rights to the sports products. So the gels, you guys might know, the gels,
awesome.
and the chews and the powders, and so the products that are for athletes. So it is not a split personality being run by one group. We are athletes, for athletes, by athletes, and my background is in the science of nutrition. I help to formulate many of the products. I feel really good about them. I use them. I give them to my friends to use. And so, I am kind of, we're kind of taking a page from the original founders who started in sport, and so it's like this household name brand, but we're taking it right back to, let's bring our product out to, little events here and there. So it's kind of a fun story. In some ways, I don't know that this has ever been done before, taking something that had its its roots in a very niche area, going wild and big, and then taking it back to that niche. But that's what we're doing. Crazy like that.
That's awesome. So I have very fond memories of the original Power Bar floating around in my swim bag, wrapped neatly in thin tinfoil. Can you tell me a little bit about what the current line looks like, how it's changed, how it stays the same, like what is out there now for athletes?
Sure. So, the reason for that original bar was it was convenient, easily palatable energy to take, mostly before going out for a run. Cyclists then were throwing it in their jersey pockets, and triathletes from the once upon a time days. I don't know if anybody out there is from those days where opened them up, put them into little balls, and stuck them on their top tube.
Huh.
You have to write
Yeah,
in and say if you're one of those people.
You didn't
What's
need
that?
to. You didn't need to stick it. It just stayed on the bike frame. It was amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No tape required.
Yeah, yeah.
The stickiness was built in. So, that bar pretty much started the category, and then things evolved. Gels were born not too much after the bars, and then powders have been around. But for the Powerbar line, all of the energy containing products, the original bar was reformulated, and I helped to do that. The gels, the hydrogels, and the sport drink powder called Isoactive, they all contain a carbohydrate combination called C2 Max. And so you can use them interchangeably. And the purpose of this C2 Max blend of carbohydrates is to speed the carbohydrate that you consume, have it be easily digested and absorbed, and get to muscles as fast as possible. Because we all have a limited amount of carbohydrates stored in our muscles.
Mm-hmm.
When that carbohydrate starts to deplete, we're forced to slow down. Depending on the intensity, that could be it could be an hour of like high intensity intermittent like soccer. By you go into overtime, you're depleted. If you're running a marathon, it could be out there in the 2 to 2.5 hour range. And for Ironman, a little bit lower intensity, it's there. So you want to be fueling at a level that will supplement your stored carbohydrate, and that will improve your performance. So there's a whole range of different product formats, and you really can use them interchangeably. So the original bar, that's typically the more solid formats are used for either before or during cycling. Typically wouldn't use a bar when you're running. The gels are perfect when you're running because they're really portable. You don't have to be carrying water. This new, I don't know if you guys have tried the new hydros. I'll just, if you hear that, they're really liquid, so you don't have to actually even chase it down with water. So that's a nice new innovation, a simple innovation, cool. But so it's a little bit heavier, but it has a little bit of water in it that you need. All of these are interchangeable in their usage, and so you can put them together to try to hit your target carbohydrate intake while you're out there. If I can talk about that for a second, there's three basic things I want to pass along to you guys. One's about fueling, one's about hydration, one's about recovery. Since we're talking about the Powerbar stuff, we'll talk about fueling. So for fueling, most people think of fueling as like recovery when they're starting to feel low. So they're running along and they're like, oh, I'm starting to feel down a little bit. Let me grab a gel. That is not the right way to do nutrition. You actually you want to start early and do it often, and the science is really strong in that. The recommendations are from 30 to 90 grams per hour. That's the metric you want to look at. On the back of any product you'll see in the nutrition facts box, you look for the carbohydrate. Gels typically have 25 to 30 grams in a pack. The chews have 45 grams, so you can start to put together a little plan. My personal usage and the research supports getting up to 90 grams in an hour. In the two marathons where I was really targeting a fast time, I'm a cyclist. I'm not a great runner, but I did go into 3 hours 2 times, and I did 90 grams. I did 3 gels per hour for each of the 3 hours, basically, and that's a really high level. I mean, probably most people out there, maybe they're doing 1 or 2. There's really good data, and if anybody's interested, I'm happy to share the dose response study that shows a sweet spot that's basically higher than most people are doing. So that is one of the tips to take home, through a combination of sports drinks, chews, gels. Even if you want to try some whole foods, you can try low fiber, carbohydrate containing foods, combining them in a way that gets you up to close to 90 grams an hour. If you can't get there, you don't want to get yourself sick. There's a trade-off between gastrointestinal tolerance and maximum fueling. So if you can get up there, experiment with it. If you're currently doing 1 gel an hour, try 1.5 or 2, and make your way up that way. So I don't know if that's consistent with what you guys are telling everybody, but that's where the data is. And it is something that you can do to improve your endurance performance fairly easily. It's just a matter of taking more on board. I'll take a pause because
no, that's great. This is dream interview. You're like, oh sweet, they're gonna do it. I just have to point them in the direction. That's good though that you're staying hydrated. It's hard. Getting interviewed is tough.
Oh no, you know what? I did a trail run a couple hours ago, so I'm still today. So I'm in New Jersey. It was in the mid 80s today. It was beautiful, glorious, but I'm still rehydrating.
One question that something that we bump into with our athletes a lot is a bit of like a fixed mindset about how much they feel that they can take on. Could you talk about an athlete's ability to train higher absorption?
Yeah, no, that's great. There is data here. Again, if anybody's interested, I can provide the references. You can train your gut. So if you are comfortable at 30 grams an hour, and you know that when you hit 40, you start to feel queasy, you probably can spend a little time and move your way up. I'm friends with the nutritionist for some of the Olympic teams. Louise Burke in Australia, she's the head of Australian Institute of Sport. My friend Trent Stellingwerff is up in Canada. I know Asker in UK. When they work with the top athletes, endurance athletes, they learn what their number is, and the number is how many grams of carbohydrate can you take on board during your sport per hour, and they try to inch it up, because that is one of the things you can do with nutrition to improve your performance. And it's a gimme. It's not about bringing your elbows closer together on the bike, or whatever, getting your elbow up for swimming, or you can just increase the amount of grams of carbs you're taking on board and potentially improve your performance. And so the data does support training your gut.
Awesome. So we also encounter some of the same with hydration, with people thinking that there's a set number that everyone should be getting in terms of how much fluid they should be consuming. A lot of our athletes are fairly familiar with the idea of a sweat test, but can you talk to us a bit about how you determine how much hydration an athlete might need, and what the important things to be focusing on are for as far as hydration?
Yep, absolutely. So everybody has their own unique sweat rate. Mm-hmm. It is genetically built into you. You probably know if you're a heavy or light sweater, and the range is very wide. So, if I take any group of 10 people, I will find people who sweat 500 mils an hour, and I'll find people who are above a liter. And so that translates to a liter is 2 pounds, half a liter or 500 mils is a pound. There will be people who go out for an hour and will lose less than a pound. And there will be somebody who will go out for an hour and they'll sweat 4 pounds. Mm-hmm. So given that dehydration impacts your performance, you need to learn your sweat rate to figure out how much you should hydrate. I mean, it's as simple as that. And the way to do it is, the simplest thing is just with a digital scale that you get for $15 online. That you just need decimals. Not you need 150.7, so you need just tenths. You weigh yourself before and after. The hydration zone is from your starting hydrated weight to 2% less. So if you're in that zone, you're okay. You're allowed to lose 2%. So just if we take a 150-pound person on average, you can lose 3 pounds, and you're within a range that you're not impacting your performance. As you get below that, it's not like you fall off a cliff. It just, your blood is getting a little bit thicker. Your heart has to work harder to get nutrients out to your muscles, and you're starting to impact your performance. So, step on the scale, weigh, if you're in the privacy of your own home, step on the scale with nothing on or as little as possible, and then do the same at the end, and see the difference. And then do the little bit of math. And, the simplest thing to do is, drink the way you normally drink. And if you stayed in that zone, great. Now, if you went out for an hour and you were at close to that 2%, that if you go out for 2 hours, you're not drinking more, you might dip below that 2%, so you might have to drink more. So there's a little bit of math involved, and if anybody has any questions on it, happy to follow up. But the simplest thing is just step on the scale before and after, and try not to lose 2%. If you're losing more, drink more. Now, if you're a heavy sweater, you may not be able to catch up to that 2%. And I'm in that category. At some point, I'm drinking as much as I'm comfortable. If I drink more, it's going to slow me down also. So that's part of this experimentation that especially now in these crazy times, you can be taking advantage of learning yourself and experimenting with, like, what is your sweat rate? How much can I hydrate? Can I push that? Again, there may be an ability to train your tolerance of fluid intake. So that is something you can practice. The fluid can be water, but it also can be sport drink. And you might find it easier to drink sport drink because it tastes better. Some people are more comfortable with water and want to do gels, and some people really like sports drink. So the one thing I want to say on overhydration, dehydration will impact your performance. It's uncomfortable. You could get headaches. You can get maybe a little bit of nauseous. If you overhydrate, so you're a light sweater and you happen to drink too much, that's actually dangerous. So if you step on the scale, you go out, do your typical drinking, you come back, and you've gained weight, you need to back off. And so this is why you really should learn your sweating rate, so that you could, and that's why it's this hydration zone, so that if you're a light sweater, you don't drink too much. If you're a heavy sweater, can you train yourself to get back up into that zone?
Awesome.
Staying on the hydration theme, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the evolution of the hydration products that Powerbar has had over the years. I fondly remember Powerbar Perform. The reason I remember it so fondly is I'm a big guy. Like I was, when I was racing Ironman, I would usually end up taking sometimes north of 90 grams an hour. And Powerbar Perform at at full capacity was around like 50 grams a bottle, like if you were hitting the 600 milligrams of sodium. Isoactive has the newer product is much closer to around 40 grams like per bottle, which is where a lot of like sports drinks have kind of gravitated towards as like more and more as science has gotten better about this. I was wondering if you could just talk about the evolution and the process of developing Isoactive.
Sure. So, there's the main thing that you want to do is get these grams of carbohydrate. And you've got the different product formats to get you there. But there's a couple of things that go into making a good sports drink. There's interesting scientific evidence about your perception of sweetness in the course of exercise. Something that tastes good when you're on a road trip and you stop at 7-Eleven might taste fine then. If you take that same drink out on the road, it tastes too sweet. And so that's you could talk about like what's the evolutionary reason behind that. When we're running, we're trying to find sensitive to carbohydrate. So if something is too sweet, it makes you not want to drink it in the middle of of an exercise session. And there's a lot of variation between individuals. Again, some people like that sweet, and some people it can be, sweet is tough for them. So one of the things to do in a sport drink, and the evolution of sports drinks, and the granddaddy of the sports drinks, is tastes pretty good out there on the road trip, and not some people find it too sweet when they're actually actually out on the road running or cycling. And so there are some tools that we can use in formulating a drink, and there are carbohydrates, and one of them you'll see the ingredient maltodextrin. Maltodextrin is a glucose. Glucose is what's circulating around in your bloodstream. That is the currency of carbohydrate in your bloodstream. Maltodextrin is chains of glucose molecules that can be easily broken down in the stomach and small intestine. And so the benefit of maltodextrin is that it doesn't taste sweet. So it goes in your mouth, it tastes relatively bland. It gets down into your where you're absorbing, and the body sees it exactly the same as glucose. So that is one of the things that you can do to make the drink less sweet. And one of the things that I really like about Isoactive and in the development of the drink, it's light tasting. And so the carbohydrate concentration and the ingredient profile is really about making it relatively light tasting. But because of the C2 max, which is a combination of glucose sources and fructose sources, fructose is quite sweet. So that is the balance. We want to make it as fast absorbing as possible, which is the C2 max, but we want to use glucose that's as bland as possible. So that's some of the stuff that went into the development of the drink, and allows it to be used interchangeably with the gels, the bar, and the chews. The other thing is, like we were talking about before, sodium. Sodium is the key electrolyte that you lose in sweat. Mm-hmm. You lose a number of different electrolytes, but sodium is the one that you lose in the greatest quantity by far. The next one is potassium, but it's like a 5-to-1 loss. Like, you lose about a gram of sodium in a liter. A liter is about what the average person is sweating per hour. So you're losing a gram, which is 1,000 milligrams of sodium an hour, which is why if you're doing an endurance sport, you probably in general don't have to be as worried about, watching sodium and salt in your diet, because you're losing so much. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you can go and eat pickles all day or pizza, which are super high in sodium. But while you're out there exercising, you want to replace the sodium. Now, 1,000 milligrams in a liter, if you put 1 gram of salt in a liter of water and you drink it, it will taste like your sweat. So most drinks will try to get an amount of sodium that's approaching 1,000, but it's going to be somewhat less, so it's palatable. So again, there's a trade-off between, we want to put your sweat right back in you, but we want to allow you to be able to tolerate this stuff in palatability. So those are some of the things that go into designing a good sports drink.
Very cool.
How do you guys receive and how do you guys choose what feedback you kind of act on when you're developed? Because the thing about nutrition is everybody has a strong opinion. Mm-hmm. So how
it's highly personal.
Yeah. How do you decide which direction to follow?
So I think ultimately you want to be able to follow multiple directions in terms of flavors, and things like caffeine. I mean, caffeine is probably the most polarizing ingredient. I have I don't know if anybody who's on has done a marathon where there was a power gel zone. So you've got the 6 or 8 different flavors up the side at mile 18 or whatever, and people come through yelling, caffeine, caffeine. And then some people no caffeine, no caffeine. So I think, it's about having enough choices for people. The other thing is, we have a new flavor on the gel, salty peanut, which is really not sweet, and it's savory, and some people are just crazy for it. And then some people, they love their vanilla. So I think it's about, in terms of flavors, it's about having a variety. And us crazy endurance types, we use a ton of this stuff, so variety is good. But product development is no good unless you're taking it out and putting it through its field tests. And that's a key point of nutrition, by the way, for everybody listening. Rule number one, I'm sure you've drilled this into people: nothing new on race day. You got to try everything. And the layer deeper on that is, it's not just race distance, it's race tempo. So you want to try, even in your runs that are maybe runs that you would typically not be doing nutrition, you want to be trying nutrition when you're going race pace, because it's harder. It's harder to get that gel in, and so it's good to practice that and see what flavors. You're probably never going to go race distance and speed at the same time unless you're racing. So you gotta play with it in the different formats where you can. So I mean, that's, you can imagine it's pretty fun for me to be trying out new stuff, because and my friends, where they always get the silver packaging, and we'll make sure that you guys are in the silver packaging.
We are here for that.
Yeah. Always happy to try new things.
That's a great segue into one of our questions from chat, which is, what is your favorite Powerbar flavor?
Since we started bringing these products in, we've just started bringing the products in last year after a small gap on the market. The mojito flavor hydro is so refreshing, and so it's natural lime and mint, and it's caffeinated. I am a caffeine person, and I'll tell you, if I squeeze my run in between work. When I'm thinking about it's time to, between meetings or whatever, and I'm going to go grab a 30-40 minute run, I don't even think about it. I grab the mojito, throw it down, awesome. And it's like external motivation. I don't even have to do anything, and it's like moves me out the door. So right now, like, the mojito is super good, and now that summer is coming around, I mean, it's just great. And I won't tell you about the time I brought it to my friends, and we mixed it into some rum.
Just to check on it.
That's off-label use.
Mileage may vary.
Exactly.
We just put a nudge out into the chat, just saying, like, what are some questions that people have out there? But as we're waiting for for those to come in, what is something that you wish every athlete knew about Powerbar?
Well, the thing that I'm really excited about right now is that the original Powerbar that started the category in the mid-'80s, and started with athletes, and then ended up in every store in America, and then a bunch of bars came along after that, and you can name them all, and they were better for snacking, and so little by little, the use of that original bar started shrinking back to its athlete use, and that use doesn't belong in Walmart and Costco, and so it has been discontinued by Post, and it is going to be produced again, and we are going to get to redistribute that product only to sports stores, and take it back to where it started, in sport. So this is what it's going to look like, and it is going to be available in about a month, and I'm just super excited. I got to tell you, we've got berry, chocolate, and cookies and cream as the first three flavors. I mean, that berry one I have so many memories of eating those berry ones. I mean, through my life, and it's just like, it's like a magical food for me.
I know that flavor in my soul. Yeah.
So I mean, it's really coming home. I feel like the product is coming home, and that, I really feel good about what we're doing with this brand, and, taking a page out of where it started, and we're doing that with that original bar. So, cool. That's something I'm really excited about now. And, I just, I think, for everybody out there, you probably have different connotations of what the brand means. Most people think like it's a great brand, and maybe it went too mainstream. We are bringing it right back to the sports core, And, that is what the message I would like to leave about the brand for everybody.
Awesome.
And if you have, just like you guys are asking, like, how do we take on board advice, as you guys are using products, if you're using them, send in your thoughts, and we're definitely all ears.
Awesome.
I love that you're going with the wild berry as one of the reintroductions. That I remember the first Power Bar I ate on a Boy Scout trip in like 1991, and it was a wild berry Power Bar.
Oh yeah, it was my favorite. Yeah, for sure.
It's good. It's good.
We've got another good question in chat. Also from Molly's brother, and he's not sure if he can answer this, but was there a flavor that tested and didn't fly? His quote is the Pepsi Clear of athlete fuel.
Okay. You know what? There is a gel that never made it to market that I still would love to do. It was green tea, and green tea has everything from like your big 16-ounce thing of whatever green tea, super light tasting. And if you go to Japan and drink green tea, it is so bitter, and it's like so, and green tea ice cream is one of my favorite things, like really, really like bitter and sweet and creamy. And I felt like we had nailed this green tea gel flavor, and it's on the cutting room floor. But I would love to dig into that. It had caffeine, and it just was like that bitter was like really thirst quenching. So that's one that comes to mind for that question.
Interesting. Yeah, I would think people would love that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
But would you guys like the kind of light green tea or the more like strong flavor, you think?
I would like the light green tea. I think that very strong green tea can taste like fish food sometimes.
Yeah. You know what? I think we'll just have to have both.
I guess so. I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of something that is savory and bitter. Just because I mean, anything that's different.
Yeah, instead of
is so crucial on those super long days.
Yeah, for sure.
And just since we're on this topic of bitter, I count as friends some of the top sports nutrition researchers in the world, and there's some so just a little insight in how this stuff works. So like Australia is a really great country for science and sport. I mean, the Australian Institute of Sport is really the #1 sports institute in the world, and Australia punches above its weight in terms of results, and in large part to AIS. And their nutrition is particularly strong, and they are experimenting with different things. There are compounds that make you feel cool that you ingest. They're not. It's not temperature related. There are bitter compounds that give you a little bump, and so there's some very interesting things. So the way it works is they do research in the 4-year Olympic span. They use it for their team, and then after the Olympics over, they publish the research, and so that it's can be out there in the world for peer review. And then they're working on their next secret sauce for the next Olympics, and then it gets out into the public domain. And it's a very great community, international community of these leading experts in nutrition, sports nutrition, and exercise physiology. Really tight group, and they're very good at sharing their information after the Olympics.
That's amazing.
Speaking of sports and Olympics and whatnot, what do you have planned yourself for? So this is an odd year for events. Do you have any events on the calendar? And if those events are being taken away from you, what are you doing to substitute in for them?
That's really nice of you to ask about my personal. So my story is, I was a bike racer, had a great time. I did enough miles to cycle to the moon and back. And then, when I started working, I started running because it was more convenient to get out at lunchtime. And I did marathons, and eventually you run enough and you need to switch it up. And that's why I did start getting into triathlon. And, I didn't compete for a while, but then when I went to Switzerland, it was just the cycling was just so great over there, and the swimming in Lake Geneva. So that's when I did the Ironman. And so I kind of on and off, I've been doing triathlon. I just feel like for my, 50 something body, I think switching up the sports is probably the healthiest for me. 2 years ago, I got serious and started training for a triathlon, just a local one, but it was a good local one. And it was the first race I'd done in more than 5 years. And I won my age group by 7 minutes. And I'm like, okay, this is fun. It's like evolution. Like first you're swimming, and then you're like, leaned over, and finally you're like erect, and like, I was having fun with it. And like, yeah, I want to do triathlon. 2 weeks later, I was body surfing out in Fire Island in New York, and I tore my hamstring, and I had to have surgery. And so for the last 2 years, I've been on the comeback trail, and I was planning to do that same race in June. So that was my target race, was this local triathlon. And so, I'm not quite at the fitness that I was at 2 years ago. So I'm like, my fitness is still increasing. I chase the local Strava segments. I mean, who doesn't? It's fun to have some of my kids' high school friends be, I'm beating them, like by 3 seconds up some hill.
That's awesome.
Like, I just got moved into second on this local climb. My kids are in high school, and I always said, I've never done Kona. I've always said that, when the kids, my daughter is going to college in the fall. So it's, going to college, we'll see what happens. And my son's got to make his way through high school. But I think, Kona in some future age group is, I'm hoping it will be in my future. But for the time being, I'd love to make my way back through, get back to do a 70.3. I really like that distance. I find it to be just slightly more training than training for a marathon. Mm-hmm. Like Ironman, I just, I can't do that and have the kids around the house. Not fair for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting for everybody. Like, and it's, because we're all dealing with adjustments this year. Mm-hmm. And then I think it's also, it's important for people to see that, like, the head of like an iconic nutrition brand is still like, yeah, I'm like scrabbling to find time to get out and train. It's
absolutely. Mm-hmm. I get out whenever I can. Mm-hmm. If I can get out for 30, 40 minutes, I do it. And I hit it hard, and there's not a lot of long hills around here. So on the road, I'm lucky to get a 3-minute segment mm-hmm. on a climb. So I do 3-minute segments. I'm ready to go home. If I hit it hard enough, right?
Yeah.
But then there's a beautiful state park that's about 40 minutes from here called Harriman.
I love Harriman.
I mean, it is. It's hard. I was there 2 weeks ago, and I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of paradise, so close to New York City, mm-hmm. Beautiful roads, you're going by lakes. And so I think we're going to head there tomorrow morning.
Oh, awesome. I used to go and swim in Lake Tirarati and then ride my bike around Harriman a couple times. It was great. Lots of deer, but really pretty.
And the occasional bear.
Occasional bear, yeah. It's close to Bear Mountain. I guess it makes sense.
Exactly.
I don't know if they still have that bike race. There's a circuit race out there at Bear Mountain in Harriman State Park. I don't know if it's there anymore.
That was an Olympic trials qualifier once upon a time, back in the 80s, and I qualified for the Olympic trials on that course.
Nice. Oh my God. That's
ABBT
amazing.
has a great question in chat. So she says, I'm thinking it will be challenging for our virtual campers. So we have virtual camp coming up with some support from Powerbar, which we're very excited about, to practice nutrition like our regular camp. So tough to get nutrition right without our coaches yelling at them, making them hydrate. And especially without races right around the corner. So what can we lecture them on, saying, Eric says you should.
I think for like the hydration thing, it is such a, if you can somehow get excited about the discovery of your own body, that it does something different than everybody else, and you
Mm-hmm.
it's not that hard to learn about your own little profile, like
Mm-hmm.
how much do you sweat per hour, and how does that get impacted if I'm on the bike or running or swimming, how does intensity impact that. So I mean, that's like a little, it's not hard to do. It's just, you just keep that scale around and jump on it before and after, and pretty soon you're doing something that's that's going to help your performance.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah, I love that. The keeping track of things, keeping score, that's something that we talk to our athletes a lot, is like, write it down, try something, figure it out. Like, keep, like, you have the tools at your disposal, so keep track of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're right at around 45 minutes, so we're gonna wrap it up. It is almost 9 p.m. for you. And if
Thanks
you're
for
anything
staying up
like
late with
us,
us.
endurance athletes who run businesses, it's getting closer to bedtime. But Eric, this is awesome. It's really nice
Yes.
to finally get to meet you
Yeah,
in this
same here.
capacity. And I mean, I've been with Powerbar since 2009, I think. So I'm really grateful to everything that you guys have done to support my own racing. And thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Good luck. Stay safe out there. And we just featured Chris on our Instagram yesterday. We're going through all of our Team Elite team. It's really, if you want to be inspired by a really diverse group of athletes, people like you, come and follow us. And good luck out there. Good luck. You're in good hands with these guys.
Thank
And
you.
pleasure.
We really appreciate it. It's been great getting to chat with you. And to everybody out there who is heading into their Friday night, make sure you come back and join us tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for our endurance spin. And Sunday morning at 8 a.m. for Yoga with Amy VT, another of the Powerbar elite athletes. Awesome. So thank you so much. And we will talk to you guys again soon. Eric, thanks for making the time to come and talk to us.
It was a pleasure.
Bye,
Anytime.
guys.
Bye-bye.